You have exactly 24 hours to tear down that dock, or we'll have it demolished and bill you for the costs. Those were the first words out of Margaret Stevens' mouth. Yeah, HOA president, badge and all, standing at the edge of my property with her little entourage, faces pinched like they'd smelled something foul. Sun was barely up, and I was still working through my first cup of coffee. But let me tell you, I've been waiting for that moment ever since the ink dried on my deed to Lake Willow 3 weeks ago. They had no idea what kind of storm was coming their way, and honestly, that was half the fun. So there I am, mug in hand, just soaking it all in. The lake, the morning, Margaret posturing like she's queen of the world, and I set my coffee down real careful, fixing her with the kind of look that says, "Lady, you're about to have a very bad day." "Mrs. Stevens," I said, steady as I could muster, maybe with just a hint of a smile, "I think you should check your property survey before you start making threats. You ever dealt with someone so sure they had the upper hand, only to watch the whole deck collapse right under them? Drop a comment if you know that feeling, because, buddy, my grandfather always told me, Marcus, the sweetest victories are served with paperwork. And trust me, he knew what he was talking about. Granddad spent 40 years as a property lawyer down in Georgia, fighting more legal battles than I've had hot dinners. When he passed, he left me 2 things: a battered old law library that smelled like ink and ambition, and just enough cash to make a play if I ever saw a shot worth taking. That's how I ended up with Lake Willow, 15 acres of clear water, rimmed on all sides by Willowbrook Estates and their shiny new HOA signs. I found the place on a distress sale listing, and if you ever saw the price, you'd think I was the one getting fleeced. But the previous owner, Chester, he was done, just plain wrung out by years of fighting these people over every little thing. Access, fishing rights, even the color of his damn kayak. But the deed, he said, always proved the lake was private. Always. First time I drove out to see the place, there was this thick morning mist hugging the water like a secret. Chester was waiting for me at the dock, hands shaking as he handed over a stack of boxes, decades of battles in paper form. "They think because I'm old, I'm weak," he muttered, eyes darting to the tree line like someone might jump out and serve him another notice. "Maybe they'll think twice with you." That was the handoff, just 2 strangers, early morning, swapping hope for one more round. 3 days after closing, I'm out there nailing up private property signs, brand new, bright red, when I get my first real taste of the HOA cavalry. Margaret Stevens, looking like she's on her way to a luncheon, 5 board members in tow, high heels crunching down my gravel drive. She calls out, excuse me," in this voice that probably makes her husband jump out of his skin. "This lake is HOA property. You can't just put up signs," she snaps. I wipe my hands on my jeans, turn slow so she knows I'm not in any rush, and let the sunlight hit just right behind me, making the whole lake shimmer. Actually, I can. I own it. And you could have heard a pin drop right then. That's how quiet it got. She looks me up and down like I just told her the earth was flat, and her board starts shuffling. One of them pulling out a phone, probably searching county records like it's going to save them. "That's impossible," she huffs. "We've managed this lake for 15 years. Managed? Maybe. Owned? Not even close." I whip out my phone, thumb through to a photo of the deed. Lake Willow, 15 acres, purchased free and clear. Want to see the survey markers? She actually flinches like paperwork is contagious or something. "This can't be." She whispers, "We have amenity rights. We've spent thousands on maintenance. Lady, you've been investing in property you never owned. And where I come from, that's called trespassing." That night, I laid out Chester's files across my whole dining room table. Contracts, lawsuits, HOA memos, even handwritten notes from board meetings. Cold coffee in one hand, highlighter in the other, and I'm deep diving into Margaret's greatest hits. Threatening emails, bogus fines for non-compliance, attempt to condemn Chester's old dock as a safety risk. But then, buried in the mess, I hit gold. A 1952 easement agreement, brittle and yellow, signed an actual fountain pen. The original owner, Chester's dad, had allowed Willowbrook reasonable access for recreational purposes, but only if the HOA paid a $500 annual fee, adjusted for inflation. That little detail, everyone had just forgotten. For 70 years. I get my friend James on the phone, a contract lawyer in Atlanta, old college buddy. I'm reading the clause out loud, and I can almost hear him grinning through the line. Marcus, if they haven't paid that since 1952, they've been trespassing longer than you've been alive. By my math, at today's rates, they'd owe you about 47 grand in back fees, plus interest. That's what we call a slam dunk. But be careful, he warns me. People like Margaret, they don't play fair. Didn't take long for the gloves to come off. Next morning, there's a cease and desist letter taped to my dock, right over my new sign, as if that's going to erase it. By lunchtime, folks are gathered at the shoreline with their phones out, snapping photos, posting online about the hostile takeover. I made it a point to document everything. Trespassers, threats, even the wrong color complaint about my old aluminum fishing boat. Security cameras don't lie. Margaret was out there at 6 a.m. with her flock, pointing out violations like she's auditioning for Judge Judy. According to her, my dock needed a special stain, my boat was too blue, and don't even get me started on the kayak rulebook. But the real fireworks kicked off on Thursday night. I'm out fixing up Chester's Pier, wrench in hand, when I hear the unmistakable rumble of heavy machinery. An excavator, yellow as a canary, idling by the HOA's so-called beach. Margaret's out there, bullhorn in hand, barking orders about removing non-compliant structures, the floating dock, the swim platform, all of it. I walk over, calm as Sunday morning, phone rolling video. Crew's got that nervous look like they know something ain't right. Those on my property, I tell them. You touch a single nail, you're on the hook for destruction of private property. Margaret tries to puff up, starts spouting HOA jurisdiction nonsense. This isn't a community amenity, Mrs. Stevens. This is my lake. I turn to the foreman, ask if he's seen proof of ownership. He shakes his head, shrugs. She said it was HOA land. Not even close, bud. Here's the deed. You wreck my dock, your company gets sued. 5 minutes later, that excavator's up the hill, tail between its legs. I figured that'd be the end of it. Oh, but I was wrong. Around 8 that night, there's a soft knock on my door. Rain just starting to come down. Patricia Chun, the HOA treasurer, standing there with a box of files, looking over her shoulder like she's afraid Margaret's lurking in the bushes. Mr. Johnson, she starts, voice barely above a whisper. I've been going over our records. Margaret never told us about the easement terms. We've been charging residents for access we don't even legally have. I let her in. She's soaked, box heavy with papers, and we spread everything out on the same table I'd used for Chester's files. Turns out, the HOA had spent 200 grand on lake maintenance in the past 5 years. Money scraped out of residents for amenities they weren't entitled to. Patricia's hands are shaking now. This is fraud, she whispers. Some of us want to fix it. But Margaret? She's calling an emergency board meeting tomorrow. And she's got a plan. That meeting was straight out of a bad TV drama. Standing room only, the community center buzzing, people whispering, waiting for the showdown. Margaret gets up front, struts out with that old fire, and points right at me, like she's making a citizen's arrest. This man, she hollers, thinks he can steal our lake. But we have adverse possession. We've cared for this lake for 15 years. I stood up, feeling my grandfather's words in my head. Never interrupt an enemy making a mistake. May I? The room falls dead silent. I flip open my folder, every page organized, every receipt highlighted. Adverse possession in this state takes 20 years, not 15. You're 5 short. And by the way, your own HOA charter, page 47, section 3, admits the lake is private property. You've been collecting fees for access you never secured. Murmurs start up, folks shooting daggers at Margaret. Someone yells, "Is that true? Margaret?" And then I go for the close. The 1952 easement. Never paid. Not once. At today's rate, you all owe me 47 grand. But I'm not here to bleed anybody dry. So I make an offer $100 a household every year for lake access, plus proper insurance, respect for the hours, and oh yeah, new leadership. People start whispering, tallying up numbers. That's less than we're paying now. The vote isn't even close, 47-3. Margaret storms out, heels clacking like gunfire. That was the last I ever saw her in charge. These days, the lake's quiet, kids swimming, folks fishing, everyone waving when they see me. Patricia and the new board come by for coffee once a month. We put in a proper beach, fixed up the boat launch, paid for with fair fees instead of underhanded fines. Last week, Chester called just to say, "Marcus, you did what I never could. You made them face the truth." I watched the sun dip behind the trees, golden lights spilling across the water, and I thought about my granddad. Power's not about control, it's about stewardship. Sometimes, the sweetest revenge is just holding up a mirror and letting people see what they've really become. So, what would you have done in my shoes? Gone nuclear? Played it cool? Well, we just packed up and moved. Drop a comment below. Hit subscribe if you like stories about standing your ground. And let's hear it. Where do you draw the line when someone tries to take what's yours?